Tonight is the night of the big game. America has 4 major sports: basketball, hockey, baseball, and football. But of them, football is the most popular, and it has been that way ever since the MLB strike of 1994, which resulted in the postseason of that year being canceled. Devastating, especially for the Montreal Canadiens, who are now known as the Washington Nationals, who were forced to wait 25 years in order to have a chance to be in the World Series. But the Super Bowl gets more views in the World Series. And this is in part because of the fact that the Super Bowl is a winner-take-all game. For the World Series, that's not impossible, but it doesn't happen very often either for it to be a winner-take-all kind of game. In any case, the Super Bowl is going to be happening tonight, and there are quite a few reasons that I want the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to make an entire YouTube video explaining why I want the Eagles to win. First of all, notice where I am. And not just in some random neighborhood park, but I am in Long Island. That is part of the New York metro area. So you would think that I would support the New York Jets and New York Giants, right? Well, no, because those teams fundamentally do not play in New York. They instead play in New Jersey. The fact that they pretend to be New York teams but aren't is disturbing. Unfortunately, a lawsuit dealing with this matter, they've ruled on the Giants and Jets side that there was going to not be a meaningful difference either way. But when you think about New Jersey and New York and the different laws in those areas, I mean, in some cases it would actually be better for them to play in New Jersey, but still. And while I was a fan of the Buffalo Bills, especially after the Damar Hamlin situation, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC divisional rounds. They lost to the Bengals, which is also the game that got canceled. And this is kind of that game that never happened, that now it was about to happen. In any case, the Philadelphia Eagles are in Pennsylvania. So now you might be wondering, why would I root for the Eagles? Well, I don't particularly like the region of the United States I live in, the eastern U.S., but of those states, Maine and New Hampshire are my favorite. But my third favorite is Pennsylvania. They are my third favorite state along the eastern seaboard. And I've always liked Pittsburgh sports, the Pittsburgh Pirates. In particular, I like the MLB. It's just that the Pittsburgh Pirates don't actually do well, and they haven't made the postseason since 2015. They haven't advanced past the wild card since 2013, and they haven't clinched the division in multiple decades. The Pirates not doing so well. The Steelers are historically a powerhouse, and while they got close to making the 2022-23 playoffs for the NFL, they didn't, and that was because the Miami Dolphins also won the game. The Dolphins had to have lost to the Jets in order for the Steelers to have been able to make it in. So, anyway, as far as the baseball goes, Pittsburgh hasn't been doing so well. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies, I was kind of a little bit iffy on supporting them. I didn't exactly know who to support in the postseason. But I began to see this, and I was like, okay, who do I root for? And once we got to the NLDS, and the ALDS, when I started to care, I began to go along these distinct lines. I was pretty neutral. I kind of support the Yankees in their series against the Guardians. I really wanted the Mariners to beat the Astros, but that didn't happen. I was supporting the Dodgers over the Padres, even though historically I used to hate the Dodgers, and that's because on August 6, 2022, I got the pleasure of actually going to Dodger Stadium, and I liked the way that they played now that I saw it in person. But the Dodgers lost. And as far as the Phillies versus the Braves, I wasn't sure. The Phillies was this one team that kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me that they were even in the postseason. I honestly thought the Milwaukee Brewers would make it instead, but that didn't happen. So, as far as that series went, as far as the that went, we saw the results. So the Yankees were playing the Astros, and I rooted for the Yankees. But the Padres versus Phillies, I wasn't too sure on who I wanted to win. But ultimately, I decided that I was going to be swayed towards the Phillies. Now, I hate the Astros, especially after what they did with their cheating scandal. So I was not happy when they won the World Series. I was passionately rooting for the Philadelphia Phillies. And then I got into the NFL and realized the Eagles have an 8-0 record. Maybe they could avenge the Phillies. And as someone who never liked the Giants, and the Eagles being the main rival of the Giants, I was like, okay, this is how I justify it, so people don't think I'm doing this just because they're a good team. At that point, the Eagles the Giants and the Cowboys were 6-2. Both very good records, but definitely, not as impressive compared to, say, like, the Eagles. And at this point, the Jets were actually doing good too, which was a surprise. The Jets actually had a 6-3 record up to this point. Then they would collapse. I was always not sure if the Jets would make it, though, because of how AFC was seemingly doing better than NFC at that point. Now it's actually no longer the case. And, I was now interested. And I figured, wouldn't it be so cool if the Eagles made it 17-0? That didn't happen, though. And the reason why that didn't happen was because the Eagles lost their very next game against the Commanders. I kind of actually wanted a scenario in which basically all three NFC East teams, all four of them, made the postseason. Even though I didn't want the Giants to make it, I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if all of the wild cards were in NFC East? And then just root for the Giants when they lose. However, the Commanders began to slip in their rankings, and Week 17 was devastating to them. Pretty much, not only did they lose Week 17, but the Seahawks, the Lions, the Packers, they all won Week 17. I actually saw the results of the Packers win, against the Miami Dolphins. I saw that. And the Dolphins, who are looking to clinch the AFC spot, all they needed to do was, win. But they lost. So, because the Miami Dolphins wound up losing, it had to go to Week 18, but then they did beat the Jets, so they did make it in the end. The Packers also got very close to making it into that final NFC slot, but ultimately it went to the Seattle Seahawks instead. But as far as the as far as, you know, the Eagles went, so they were still doing very well even if they won loss. But while they were pulling a 13-1 record at a point, they actually lost 2 games consecutively. This is brutal. This is brutal. They lost 2 consecutive games. Fortunately for the Eagles, they would win their Week 18 game against the Giants. The Giants were kind of going a little bit lax because they were either going to be 10-6 or 9-7, which guaranteed them slot 6. There was actually a bit of a battle going on between the Eagles and the Cowboys for the NFC East title. And them were also competing against the 49ers for the bye. All the Eagles had to do was win to get the bye. And I was rooting for them. But this is very polarizing because they were playing the Giants. A lot of people wanted the Giants to win. The Cowboys and 49ers would also both have to lose in order for the Eagles to still get the bye. Now, the Cowboys ultimately lost against the Washington Commanders. So it is unfortunate how Week 17 played out, because otherwise we could have seen all 3 NFC East teams in, but we didn't, because at that point the Commanders were mathematically eliminated, because not only did they lose, but everyone who they were competing against won. Everyone. So there was no way that they, at that point, could have had a chance. It was going to be a contest between the Lions and the Packers, which is obviously going to be very bitter. And the Seattle Seahawks. But while the Cowboys lost, the 49ers won that week. So, had the Eagles lost, the 49ers would have gotten a bye. Eagles would have had to have settled for slot number 2, which would have been the Seahawks, which should have been easy, but I was getting quite nervous, but thankfully they beat the Giants. So they got the bye. They beat the Giants, as I was expecting, and really rooting for the Eagles at that point. I was passionate. I was rooting for the Vikings over the Giants, and I really thought the Vikings could actually win. I was surprised when the Giants won until I looked at the fact that the point differential was a losing for the Vikings. All their wins were close. All their losses were blowouts. So, put it together in one game, Vikings lost. So, the 12-5 record was actually somewhat deceiving. All right. But, you know, when you look at it, and then the Eagles beat the 49ers. So now it's a Super Bowl. We have the Chiefs and we have the Eagles. The Chiefs are just this random team in Kansas City that I don't know. But I was rooting for them over the Bengals because I don't want to see T. Higgins make it anywhere ever again. But I don't know. It's just that I really can't root against the Chiefs. But I can root for the Eagles.